text messages to lipstick on the collar and more, discovering your partner is cheating can be shocking and devastating, to say the least.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Certified sex therapist Emily De Ayala and marriage and family therapist Dr. Viviana Coles are joining us now to talk more about the motives behind cheating and so much more. Ladies, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
For sure. Tough topic today.
But cheating's not only physical anymore, is it?
Oh, no. I mean, there's definitely emotional affairs. I think financial infidelity is an issue.
Spiritual.
Yeah, of course.
Are attitudes, are attitudes changing about cheating? Because back in the 80s, I'm raised by a single mom, like we were very familiar with all this. And it seemed like back then, cheating was always a deal breaker. It was like if someone was caught cheating, that was the end of the marriage and the end of,
Physical abuse, cheating, those used to be game changers, deal breakers.
But not so much anymore,
Not
right?
so much anymore. I think more and more people are trying to find out if there's a way to come out of an infidelity situation, either stronger or with a new perspective, and that's when they typically show up in our offices.
Right, and I really think that then and now, you know, people talk a lot of talk, but you never know really how you'll handle a situation like that until you find yourself in it. So I really tell people not to judge too much.
Definitely not.
Because the truth is, a lot of couples want to stay married. They want to work on it. And the truth is, if you can get past the infidelity, or the betrayal, actually, I think is even a better word, the marriage can really be stronger on the other side.
So what are some reasons why somebody would cheat?
Sometimes it's just out of convenience. You're at a low point, either for yourself or within the relationship, or maybe there's alcohol involved, and there's a business trip. You're spending time, you know, away from your normal routine, and it's an opportunity. Other times, it looks a lot more crafty and two-faced and secretive, and that takes a lot more energy.
The ones that have affairs for years and years.
You know,
Yeah, people spend so much time and money trying to cover up an affair, like steaming.
They do. But the truth is, the majority of people who become involved in an affair don't actively seek it out. It's one of those things that, as she was saying, it usually is because something's going on in a relationship, and maybe you start going to more and more work happy hours, or you know, you hang out at the bar when you're on a business trip, and when the opportunity presents itself, and when you have proximity to another person, that's when you can start towing that line.
So if you're the one with the wandering eye, should you, before you start to actually wander, should you say to your partner, hey,
I'm struggling with some feelings about being not just unhappy in our relationship, but maybe just being unhappy with myself, looking for some sort of an escape, something that makes me feel more alive or more in tune with who I was a while back when my last known default setting that worked. And I would absolutely share that with your partner, because what makes or breaks the relationship, in at least with counseling, is whether you feel like you're a team working through this together, or if someone's feeling like they're going through it alone.
Because what can happen, I think, in the early stages, so let's say the affair comes out, there's been either a disclosure, or in today's day and age, an accidental discovery, which is happening even more and more with the clouds and the computers syncing and all of that. In the initial stages of an affair, the person who was involved will say, well, these are all the reasons why I had it. You're not meeting my emotional needs. You're not meeting my sexual needs. Well, the other partner is in such trauma, possibly over what's gone on, that they can't really receive all of that. So it is really important that that person take a step back and you begin to work through recovery together.
I mean, is there, let's say someone cheats, right? I mean, that's not necessarily an indication. If I cheat on my spouse, is that an indication that I am dissatisfied? Because some people, I mean, reasons people cheat, you've just named, can go across the board. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're just on a business trip, maybe they're drunk and it's just a one-time thing.
Yeah. But it all depends, because what's really happening is a betrayal of the agreement that you had with your partner.
Right.
Sometimes couples will come in and say, oh, I never knew this was a problem. I never knew going out to lunch with my coworker would be an issue for you, or I never knew that texting or even sexting others would be a problem. There hasn't been an expressed agreement about what the rules are in the relationship. So then we're just arguing about whether or not there was cheating involved.
Right.
what if there truly is, for one partner, there is a platonic relationship with another person of the opposite sex, but yet that person's partner is the one that is just, is
threatened by
perceiving something that's truly not there?
Well, I think that, the partner who has that platonic relationship with someone of the opposite sex really has to ask themselves, is this person truly a friend of the relationship? Or is it someone I'm keeping separate from the relationship? Am I beginning to confide in them about things that may be going on in my primary relationship? Because that's when it starts to tiptoe into that emotional betrayal category.
What about people who cheat sort of out of revenge? Like, let's say a woman cheats on her husband because he's jealous and overbearing, and well, where were you? How long were you at happy hour? Where were you?
Kind of like, if you're going to accuse me of this, I might as well be doing it.
It's true.
Exactly.
It's actually, statistically, women are more likely to cheat because they're angry than men are. So I do think that anger, whether spoken or unspoken, can drive some of this. And unfortunately, it's often not until the betrayal has happened that it really highlights the issues that are going on in the primary relationship, because you realize not until someone maybe treats you the way that you want to be treated that was missing in your marriage.
What about open relationships? Because that seems to be more and more the norm these days.
Well, the difference is with open relationships, there's that agreement I was talking about. There's typically rules. There's a rule book typically that they come up with on their own to negotiate what the boundaries are. And actually, with a lot of open relationships, they have much more open communication about what's going on, just in order to keep it satisfying and keep it healthy. So they actually do a lot better about communicating than some others that just assume that they're both in the same agreement.
So just for your health, I mean, just like getting tested and all of that for your health, I think it's critical you're on the same page as your partner, right?
That's what I really come back to when we're talking about a sexual betrayal, because I do believe that we all have the right to make a fully informed decision about our physical health and our sexual health. And if you're engaging in sexual activity with another person and with your primary partner, you're taking away that very fundamental human right. And so I think that's important to think about. A lot of people will gloss over it.
So is it a red flag if one partner wants the open relationship and the other partner is like adamant, heck no?
I think it's absolutely a red flag. It's something to definitely consider talking to a relationship therapist about, because that's like a let's have a baby or let's not. One of you is going to, it has to happen, one or the other.
Right.
Especially with open relationships. If somebody is saying that they want that, it's so important to understand why. If it's going to be something that works for you, or if it's not, you need to understand why.
And I would rather someone come to me and say that than to say, hey, by the way, I cheated on you 2 years ago. Hold on, we got to leave it there for just a moment, folks. Emily and Dr. Coles are sticking around to discuss how to navigate life after an affair. That's coming up.